Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today we are going to be starting the process of adding additional bracing to the 720-gallon tank. Now, this is a difficult process to go through, more so because the actual bracing is pretty easy to install. Unfortunately though, it means that I'm going to have to cut all the drain line plumbing out and rebuild it. I'm going to have to chop up my walking platform a bit and rebuild it. And the canopy sections that are held up are also going to have to be moved a bit in order to accommodate everything that's going on with this tank and its additional bracing that's going to be added. Now, you might be wondering, well, why do we have to change anything with the walking platform or the ceiling, especially because we're adding a 3.5-inch wall all on three sides of this tank to stop the bowing, but why do we have to worry about everything up here? Well, let me go and show you guys a couple of things real quick, and then I'm going to talk through how we're going to accomplish this. There's one big first step that has to take place before any of this bracing construction can start. And it's probably going to be the most stressful part of this whole thing, because if something goes wrong, well, it's not going to be pretty. I've got good confidence though, where everything's going to be okay. It's just a matter of taking it slow and taking our time. I'm going to go now and show you guys a few of the challenges that I'm facing with this new bracing installation on the 720-gallon tank and how I plan to overcome them. The very first challenge that really needs to be looked at with this is the gap between the tanks. This by far is the most difficult part of this additional bracing build. Going to be building a 2x4 stud wall of vertical 2x4 braces around all three sides. Because I need to add another 3.5 inches here, I will no longer be able to fit my hand in here. And that's a big problem for multiple reasons. One, I'm not going to be able to secure this new stud wall to the tank or the stand because I physically won't be able to get in there. I could try to build it out from the center and maybe make it work, but then I still have lost the ability to put my arm between the tank. This might not seem like a big problem, not being able to put your arm through here to reach in, but I really think that it could give me a disadvantage. I want to be able to put magnetically held pumps into this tank. And if I can't reach between the tanks, I will not be able to put the magnets in effectively. The other thing is, I wanted this gap so that if there ever is a leak, I could determine which tank it's coming from. While I should be able to do that even with a small gap, I still have no effective way of mounting this to the tank without really being in a difficult spot. And I don't think it could be secured very well. Therefore, the first thing that we have to do is we're going to have to move the 720-gallon tank. That's right, we have to move this tank. And let me tell you why that's a bit of a problem. The 720-gallon tank has no water in it to speak of other than just a little bit on the bottom. But it still has a full aquascape in it, which has been cemented together and cannot be easily removed. Another challenge is the center glass bracing of this tank has been installed, also limiting the access into this tank. Therefore, I don't see it being reasonable to try and remove all this rock structure, adding more risk of damaging the glass, the sides, and even the glass bracing. Because I want to try and minimize that risk, I think it's best to just leave this stuff alone and gently move the tank over. Now, this tank with the glass and stand and rock is probably somewhere in the neighborhood between 1,000 to 2,000 pounds. And it's not going to be easy to move, although my wife is going to be coming downstairs to help me because I can't do this job by myself. And I really, really need her help to do this safely. And I've already told her that she's got to pick this tank up by herself. She thinks that I'm joking, but I'm really not. She is going to pick this tank up by herself. And then I am going to help to move it little by little until it's in place, and then we'll set it down. Let me talk a little bit about how we are going to accomplish this move. This is how we're going to move the 720-gallon tank. I have set up levers with a fulcrum, and with these you can push down and start to lift the tank. I have to be able to lift the tank up enough, ideally, to get a dolly underneath. Once I've had that dolly underneath it, I then have about half the weight or more of the tank kind of on edge. I could go to the other side of the tank then and use another lever to try and push it out this way. I'm going to film this whole thing. There is risk with it, and I cannot encourage anyone to do this at home. I really don't see there being another good option. I think the other options of removing things, I'm going to have to do this anyways. I think I'm making just as much, if not more, risk trying to move things in and out. And go ahead, get this tank prepped up. Then I'm going to have my wife come down, help me out, and we're going to move this tank. And I'll have some towels over here, some pieces of wood, kind of all the way around here. I put some stuff in, so if a rock does happen to fall, it shouldn't be able to hit the glass, and it's not going to be able to hit the side or back walls without hitting a towel or some kind of piece of wood as padding. Everything's squared away in the tank. I'm now ready for a test lift. I want to see visually if I can lift this up high enough to get this little dolly under here to hold this tank up so that it doesn't have to be constantly held. The way I've set up this lever system, it cannot slide, it can only lift things up vertically. If I try to slide with it, it's going to collapse and cause the tank to drop. And we don't want that. And go ahead, give this a try, and see how high it goes. Well, the first test of this was not successful, just in the fact that I wasn't able to pick the tank up high enough to get my cart underneath it. And I'm going to, I've added a little bit more height to my fulcrum here, and I've also screwed it all together so it's not just a loose stack of wood. That way it's not very likely to tip over or anything. I'm going to go ahead now and just add one final little support to it, just so that it can't fall backwards very easily. I'm going to add something in the rear here real quick with a couple of screws. And we're going to try and lift this up again and see if it works. Now we got a bit of a backstop on this. We go ahead, try this out. It's just me alone trying to pick this up right now. Okay. Oh, that's heavy. My wife's not going to be too happy with this, but I'll help her out in pushing it down, or maybe I'll push it down and have her put the cart underneath it. That might work a little bit better. Either way though, I think we're good. Once I have the cart on here, then I got a good chunk of the weight of this moved and onto something that could be moved a little easier. I'm then going to go to the other side of the tank, get a couple of 2x4s, and use that to kind of push this out so that it could be moved this way about 4.5 inches. I'm gonna just wait for her to get home and we'll get this moved. I've gotten the fulcrum all set up and the levers set up, the dolly's in place. My wife and I are gonna attempt to pick this tank up, get the dolly underneath it, and then move the tank over 4.5 inches. I put tape on the floor so I know exactly where I want it to rest. Now we just gotta get it there. Wish us luck. Got the tank moved over, but it twisted a little bit, meaning it's just not parallel with the other tank now, so I gotta pick up the other end slightly, just move it over, and we should be done. Now I just need to pull all this wood and the towel's out, and we'll see the aquascape had any kind of damage done to it. Let's see how it turned out. But there you have it. I moved the 720 gallon tank 4.5 inches roughly from where it previously sat. This should now give me enough room to build my stud wall and get the fasteners in on all 3 sides of the tank. Still a long way to go. Haven't even started cutting up lumber yet or roughing this in. Once I get it roughed in, I'll go ahead, get all the fasteners on, and I'll probably try to build this into 3 sections or so if I can. I'm probably not going to secure it right to the tank right away, but when I feel that it's good, I'm going to take it out, take it upstairs, paint it, get at least a couple of coats of paint on it, bring it back down, secure it to the tank with all the final screws and brackets, and then we will try to fill the 720 gallon tank again. This time we are going to really monitor it close and make sure that we don't have any kind of leaks or bowing of any kind. And if we're good, I'm going to have to go ahead and get my drain line section that I cut out. I'm going to have to rebuild it, unfortunately. I can't reuse any of that stuff. Once I get that done though, then I'll be able to go ahead and fill both tanks back up with water so that the 480 and the 720 are running with water again. Then we're going to do another round of monitoring to make sure there is no bowing that shows up in either one of the tanks. And then from there on out, I'm hoping that we are smooth sailing and we move this project forward. I just want to say thanks everybody for watching. If you have any comments on this, please go ahead and leave them down in the comments section below. If you liked today's video, go ahead and give it a like. If you disliked it, well, go ahead and dislike the video too. And as always, if you want to see more on the progress of the 1600 gallon system and hopefully find out if this tank is going to hold water and not have any kind of failures on it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video.